Hey everyone, Julian here today. Going to be showing you how to make Fred Again, Joy Orbison, Overmono style, Future Garage, Modern. As usual, you can get the full project files, samples, MIDI, presets, everything from this video is available at the top of the description on my website. This is an awesome template. There's not a lot of really good Future Garage templates out there, and if you grab this one, I promise today it'll take your tracks to the next level. Links at the top of the description. Thanks for the support, everybody. Every little bit helps, and let's dive in. Alright, so we're at 132 BPM, kind of like techno tempo, honestly. And the first thing we have up here is the main drums. So, when you're producing, it's not good to be too rigid and stick to like the same thing every time. But when I'm making a Future Garage track, I find if you start with these drums, not just like any drums, but like kick, snare, and main hi-hat, and just get these down first, everything can come a lot faster, and the whole track has like a foundation, and then you can do all this other cool stuff with percussion, because it has a foundation to sit on. So we always start with the kick. I've got this one right here with a bit of processing. So here's what it sounds like dry. Right, it's a nice fat 909 type of kick. But then I added this audio effect rack here. So what this is it's basically like this punch adder. What's happening is we have the dry chain, and then this chain right here where we're high passing it, a little mid boost as well to kind of make it more punchy, overdrive, and then another high pass, and it kind of gives you like an extra layer. So if we turn that off and then on, you can hear it really makes the kick cut through the mix because it's got more like. We're also doing a little subcut and then converting the whole thing to mono. We have the snare. So I really wanted to show you guys the detail in this video. There's 3 layers to this to really get this like fat, hard-hitting Future Garage rim shot. We've got this one, which is a little piece of a breakbeat that you can see I'm using the envelope on. We've got this one, another breakbeat which is being distorted. And then this one, which is like this Foley like glass sound, right? But then when it has a little tone to it, so you put that with those other ones, and it just gives you that perfect amount of like knock. Then we actually have a little bit of chorus to make it a little bit wider, so there is a bit of stereo on this. But I have a utility after it with the bass mono at 500 hertz. So all the punch and kind of like main parts of the snare are mono, so it'll still hit. But then you have the highs a bit wider, right? Then we have that main hi-hat. So the key with this is layering as well, right? You want like a lot of punch. So we got a nice 909 closed hat. This little tambourine as well, which sits nicely with that. And then an operator, kind of like open hi-hat, which you can hear gives it the ch, and it kind of makes it cut through the mix a lot better. So for this one, yeah, it's just a white noise, a little bit of a high pass filter, some reverb as well. It gives the hi-hats a bit of stereo width. And then we're just high passing all those hi-hats. On the main drum group, there's a little bit of drum bus. And by a little bit, I mean literally 10%. So here's without it. With it, it just adds a little bit more push to the drums, but obviously they're already hitting without it, and that's the key. So then we have all the percussion. Right, like I said, if you nail this stuff down, then all this stuff has something to sit on. So it starts here with this loop. It's like this crazy distorted techno loop that I actually high passed a lot. And it's kind of operating as a shaker, so I'll show you everything. Here's the whole groove without it, with it. So it's just kind of up in those highs, adding texture. We've got this. Right, like a little programmed shaker bouncing around in there. I've got this and these. I'll show you this one first. See, it's a little piece of a breakbeat, so you kind of get like some loop in there. There's also these breakbeats, which are doing call and response, so you kind of have like. Right, we have those, and it's playing out the whole loop. It's at the right pitch where it's the right speed with the drums, and then you can hear they kind of talk to each other. It's like you get one, and then the other one responds. right? And it's a little loose because they're not super warped, but it is in time, and you get this nice organic groove. And then the last element of drums is this little shaker. Right, and I actually chopped this a lot, as you can see, but it gives a really nice, just kind of like mid-range percussion. And there's all the drums. So yeah, with Future Garage, it does really help if you start with those drums, or at least kind of like use them as your North Star. But then we move up to the bass line. So this pattern here is very inspired by Fred again, and what's happening is it starts with the 808. So as far as the notes go, this is following the chord progression. We're in the key of G sharp minor. So what we're doing is we're doing the root note, the minor fourth, the minor sixth, and then the sixth right there, and then back up to that root note for the last chord. So it resolves really nicely because it ends and begins on the same note. And there's also these glides as well, which give you like some nice tension. And the key is, you know, using them sparingly. It only happens once every 4 bars. You don't need every single one of these gliding up. Just make it a thing so that when that one time it does hit, it's very impactful. For the 808 sound, what I'm doing, it's an 808 just like from a hip-hop drum kit, right? You know, we all have these. They're on Reddit, all that. But what I'm doing here is I actually cut off the attack. So if you listen to this with it, it has like a bit more of a punch, and what's happening then is you couldn't turn this up as loud because that punch was kind of like overtaking the mix. So I literally just moved that back. And see, now it's a little bit softer on the attack, which is fine because you need this to work with the kick. And you can turn it up louder because you're not compensating for that punch that was messing everything up. So we've got that. There's a little bit of a low pass filter. And then we're just cutting out a bit of sub so there's not too much, you know, stuff that you don't really hear that messes up the mix. Converting it to mono and then side chaining. And then we've also got that layered with a respace, which is playing the same MIDI. And kind of giving us some nice mids and also just filling out the bass. It's also giving it some stereo width. So this is wavetable. We're using a saw wave, another saw wave, in the same octave. They're being band passed, and then we're using some classic unison, and there's a bit of glide on there as well. You notice I set it to the same time as the 808. Very important. And this is also another reason why it's good to use like all these Ableton synths, is because if you set this one to 155 milliseconds, you know that this one will also be the same 155 milliseconds. We got a bit of chorus, a bit of overdrive, and then we're side chaining that. Then we have these 2 chords, and I want to show you these at the same time because they are playing different things, but that's kind of the point. So you hear how these fit together and kind of create like a bit of texture, not just sonically, but like musically, right? Like the same thing we're doing with the drums where we're laying all these cool breakbeats together and shakers and stuff. And it's all coming together to create this one crazy texture. It's the same concept with these chords. You know, again, we're in the key of G sharp minor. As long as you follow that, there's really no rules as far as like what can be playing at the same time. As long as it's not too much. Like maybe you wouldn't want to do like a third layer of this, right? But these two can really talk to each other nicely. And the key to it is one of them, this one, is following that same chord progression I showed you with the bass. So like the main chord progression, the G sharp minor, D sharp minor, E minor, or E major, also C sharp minor, E major, and then back to G sharp minor. So that's following that. It's just like different inversions of it. And then this one is just playing these different notes in that same exact G sharp minor scale that aren't exactly the same notes. But see, that's going to make them fit together really nice musically. A lot of people think all this counter melody stuff is really complicated. It's really not. All you really have to do is just, you know, get them in the same scale, and it'll pretty much work for the most part. And then if you can try to make stuff talk to each other, there you go. It's not really that hard of a formula. Now, for the actual sounds on these, this first one here is made with wavetable. We've got a sine wave and a triangle wave with a little bit of a low pass, but we're using the noise unison. So if I turn that off, so you can hear it's more like a standard, and then we bring that back. And that's how you create that crazy, like washed out pad. We've got a little bit of amp on there. Here's without it. The key to that is the dry wet. You definitely don't want that to be 100% wet. A little bit of reverb, which is all the way up, and then high pass, sidechain. On the second one, it's made with analog. So yeah, this is like this nice, almost like, I guess you could call it like a Moogie, like Jupiter type pad, right? Where we're doing some detuned saw waves, low pass filter, a bunch of vibrato, some chorus, echo, reverb, a little bit of saturator as well. So here's without that. Right, with it, you know, gives it a nice bit of fatness. High pass, and then sidechain. And yeah, so that's those chords, and then the last layer we got here is this crazy Overmono lead. So this is really not following the chord progression, but again, it's all in that same G sharp minor scale, right, and we're keeping it simple, so it's all gonna fit. And it'll fit together with the other stuff. And it's kind of like, you know, when this, like when the main chord progression goes down, this is going up. And you get like a lot of tension between those two, right? You know, it's not always about having them be like perfectly fitting together. These two being almost a little bit like fighting. The pad, like where that chord is going, and then this, that creates a lot of musical tension. And then when you hit this, and they fit together really well, all of a sudden you have this big moment in the chord progression. And that's no automation, that's no background effects, that's just happening in the MIDI. So that's really like, you know, this musical stuff, it's one thing to understand like automating the synth and making it open up and stuff, but the music is really where that tension and release happens. So for the sound on this one, it's made with analog. What we're doing is it's 2 saw waves, got a low pass filter with a nice punchy envelope, as well as some key tracking, which when you're doing this, you can see it's cool because it's a lot more dynamic. We've got the glide up, so you're getting that whir kind of thing. Bit of delay, a little bit of amp as well, which is a great way to make this kind of come to life. Here's without it. Then with it, we got a sidechain, high pass, and that's it. So that's me for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get this full project file. The entire template is available on my website at the top of the description. Don't miss out while it's available. It's a really, really great template, and I promise this will help you out a lot with future garage stuff. Even if you just want to take just these drums or just the synths or anything, you can literally do anything with this, and it'll really help you take your tracks to the next level. Today, I'm telling you guys, I put a lot of time into studying these tracks and figuring this stuff out. Thank you so much for the support, everybody. Every little bit helps, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.